What up, you guys? Today we're gonna show you guys how to do a brake service on a 2013 Civic. So last time we were doing a diagnosis on the car because we thought something might be wrong with the bearing, but to be honest, it wasn't really a bearing noise. So if you guys ever have that issue, you know, if you turn and it's making a scraping noise or like a screeching noise, that might be your brakes being worn. And it's weird because it doesn't do it when you step on the brakes. It rather does it when you get into like a sweeping turn. So the first thing you want to do is get the car up in air. If you don't have impact guns, you want to break the lug nuts loose before you do this, and then you want to put the car safely on jack stands. Man, the little gun is good.
Yep. Oh, just right here.
Yeah, just right there for now. Alright, you guys, so another thing on brake maintenance, what we're doing right now is you're supposed to change your brake fluid, like I would say every year, every second year, depending on manufacturer recommendations or, you know, wherever you live conditions. It doesn't show on this, but it's pretty dark where the fluid is supposed to be see-through. But we're gonna flush the system as well and show you guys how it should look like. But brake fluid matters a lot because it helps with your pedal feel. So also you get a sharper pedal feel back from new fluid. And when you do a big brake service like this, I would generally recommend bleeding the brakes. And honestly, all you need is another person. They just help you pump the brakes. All right, you guys, so on the Civic, actually the brakes are very simple. And a lot of cars, the front brakes definitely a lot more simpler than the rear. So I'm going to show you guys what we're going to need to take apart this front and service it, which is generally not a lot of tools. And actually I don't have most of my tools from work to do this job. Well, like special tools for the brakes to make it easier. So I have just this very cheap compressor tool for the piston. You can probably pick up at Harbor Freight or any O'Reilly store. For the fronts, you're gonna need a 19. You're gonna need a 12. You can do it either or with a wrench or a ratchet. There is a trick when you can tap these with a punch to get them loose and just use a Phillips, but I actually have the rotor tool. I have a hammer as well to tap this. Like, careful not to strip it because then you have to drill it out to take the rotor off, so that can kind of screw you up doing this job. What you're gonna start with, you grab your 12 and you break the caliper loose from the brake bracket. Damn, this one's pretty tight for the little 12-y. Then there is one on the bottom, and then the caliper should come off. Take these little pins out. They kind of spread the pads, and then the pads, all you have to do is just pull them out, pry them out, and you're gonna see.
This one still had a little bit of life, but just got the whole thing just to get all of them done.
But on his car, the rears are more gone, so that's why we're doing this service. And you know, we were like, since we do the rears, might as well just do the front. You switch to the 17s. And then you do the top two. It's also 2 bolts, but then you take both of these bolts out for the bracket. Some brake applications, not on this Honda, but they might have different lengths of bolts, so I always try to put them back as they came off from the car. And all you do with these bad boys, you tap them, and then boom, this way the rotor comes off. Yeah, this tool makes it a lot easier, but then again, there is ways you can just punch them off. Next thing is, if you have an extra bolt on these, when you have a little like threaded surface in it, you can use a same threaded bolt to push the rotor off. Also, you can tap the rotor from the back. So when it's rusted on the hub, the center of the hub, you gotta break that so the rotor pops off. But with the bolt, it's super easy. If you have any extra hardware around your house.
Look at that, no beating needed.
Since this is a West Coast car, we don't really have rust. But on the East Coast, probably this is a lot harder to take these babies off. Also on the new rotors, depending on where you get the rotor from, They are usually directional. It's either gonna say it on the rotor surface somewhere with a little sticker or a little machining on it. On this one it says it on the box, so you always want to check that if they're directional. Also the slots inside can be directional. These are straight, so it's not really what matters. It's more like these cooling holes on the rotor that really matters. And the next step is when you put it back, you want to see where these rotor bolts go, line it up with the hole, because where the other machine surface is at, see, this rotor don't have that to push it off, so this is more like a tapper. That was an OEM rotor and this is an aftermarket one. And then usually I just like to hold the rotor on. If you don't have rotor screws though, what you can do to keep the rotor straight until you assemble everything so it's not gonna like come off or fight you, is you put either a knot around it that's bigger, and then the how you fucking call it, Christian?
The what?
Because I can cut this, and then you put the fucking, what is it, lug bolt. So you can you can put a bigger knot on the stud,
lug nut to hold it,
and then you can put the lug nut or lug bolt on it to hold the rotor in its place. You can just tighten these, but also you can tap them back tight, so just in case when take the wheels off anytime next, you know, you're not gonna be just chilling behind the wheel or make some noise. So I like to tighten them back. The next step is usually you get hardware for these. We're not gonna replace these because we prefer the factory ones versus the aftermarket, these rattling clips. So we're just gonna spray them off. You can also wire brush it a little bit. Pads, they're not gonna stick in there. Also, for the following step, you want to pull these sliding pins out. Well, you can check them by pushing them in and out. These are actually still pretty decent, but on this type of brake system, they usually lube with some grease. And what we are going to do is clean them off. Hey, Christian, on this one, you want me to spray brake clean in it, or you just want to lube it?
Some grease on there.
So you pretty much clean them off. If you want to be really a thorough with it, you can also spray some brake clean in here to clean all the oil grease, but most of the time you don't have to, unless if you feel some sandiness or roughness in it. So you know, that way you clean the grime out of it.
Lube is key.
Not on the West Coast as much as the East Coast, I think, but these can seize up and dry up, and then that way your brake's gonna drag and wear the pads down quicker, and they also overheat your brakes half the time, so you don't want that. So it's very important to lubing these bad boys, and they side with you know, somewhat ease, and you can start putting the bracket back. And also this is the time when you want to change these. It's just pretty simple. You just pop them off and push the other one on. You just want to make sure the orientation is going to be the same. And after you got the caliper tied on there, you can go ahead and put the pads in. Sometimes it requires a little finessing, and when you push these pads in on the top, they might fight you a little bit, and then the pad should sit in very nice, you know, no binding, or it doesn't catch on anything. You don't want the brakes to get caught on something that is not supposed to get caught on. The next part, I'll show you guys how to compress the piston, which is also fairly simple. What would you like to take? You take one of the old pads, you place them back in there, at least with this tool. I have the fancy tool at work, I just don't have the fancy tool at home. But you know, this tool you guys can pick up anywhere for cheap. You know, you don't need a fancy tool to do a brake job. And then what you do, you just spin it in, compress it. I just gotta be careful on this one since it kind of pushes the boot, so I don't want to rip it, but I do want to compress it all the way in for the new pads, like nearly all the way in. You don't want to go too crazy because then these boots can pop out, and that's another pain in the butt. on these brakes you have little extra additional stuff, these little spring clips,
Like tension clips.
and then all you have to pay attention here is the orientation. They face towards the inside like that. And the hard part is you gotta hold them together because they would pop apart. But once you put the caliper on it, you know, they're gonna stay. Keeps the treads spread. Once you are done compressing, just go ahead and slide this bad boy back on it. I like to pay attention to the boot because you don't want to go too crazy and rip it.
You don't want to pinch the boot.
And then also these slide pins you want to push back in all the way so you can get the piston situated nicely on there. Also, another little tech tip is that these are oriented a certain way, so when you put the hardware in it, they're gonna catch here and not spin. And then you go ahead and tighten these as well. I'm gonna list the foot-pounds underneath there, so that way you can do your front brakes. I hope it's a good explanatory part of the video, and the fronts are very simple. Let's get to the